Welcome to Conversations That Matter, a policy-driven conversation with local leaders who work on really important issues that affect the quality of life in Kern County. I'm Mike Turnipseed, Executive Director of the Kern County Taxpayers Association. Our guest today is Andrae Gonzales, City Council Member, Ward 2, and currently the Vice Mayor for the City of Bakersfield. Welcome, Andrae.
Thank you, sir. It's great to be here.
So who's Andrae Gonzales?
Well, I am a Bakersfield native, Bakersfield boy, born and raised on the east side, went to East Bakersfield High School, and had an opportunity to go off to college to UC Berkeley, studied there, and a short time at Georgetown, and graduated from Berkeley, but always wanted to come back home to serve my community. I had an opportunity and was fortunate enough to have been raised by both my mother and my father. My dad was a community college counselor at Bakersfield College for 37 years, and he was the director of a program called Extended Opportunities Programs and Services. And so since I was a very little boy, I had the chance to observe him and how he served the community. He was on various different nonprofit boards, the Friendship House, various different organizations, trying to help the underserved. In fact, when he died, the Bakersfield Californian called him the champion of the underdog. And that's the kind of person he was, and he lived his life. So I had a first-hand look at what it meant to serve the community. And he was very quiet, very humble. You would not know he was in the room when he arrived, but he did his work diligently. And it was significant enough. It left a really indelible mark on my heart that I wanted to do the same type of work. I wanted to help improve our community here in Bakersfield, help work towards helping individuals have opportunities for success. And that's been, I feel, my God-given mission in life.
Wow, it's a noble one. So what exactly is the role of the Vice Mayor? I know it's a 2-year term.
Yeah. You're
elected by your colleagues. So do you have to do all the work? What do you do in the background that the Vice Mayor is different from the other council members?
So the City Council is made up of 7 council members, and we each have our own distinct areas that we represent. I represent Ward 2 in the City Council. And every 2 years, the council, when there's a new council, elects a Vice Mayor. And they are sort of the leader of the council. Oftentimes, the city manager will look towards the Vice Mayor for quick decision making when it's impractical to bring the full council together for decisions that may not be material, may just be more run-of-the-mill type of concerns. But more importantly, the Vice Mayor does provide some leadership on the council, really sets the tone, helps craft the agenda, sets the agenda in terms of the work that the council will consider over the course of 2 years. And the most important thing that the Vice Mayor has an opportunity to do is appoint council members to each committee. And that's really important because we want to make sure each committee assignment is balanced, make sure we have perspectives from all sectors, from all parts of the community, and making sure that really every council member feels good about participating.
You've been on the council 6 years now. A lot of things have changed. So when you came on the council, what were the biggest challenges then, and how have you addressed them? And what are, we'll talk later about the future challenges, but what were the big challenges facing the city 6 years ago?
Yeah, many of the same issues that we're facing today we were seeing back then. And I have done a lot of work in the community, not only in Bakersfield, but also in other parts of the state. And what I observed back then was, for example, in Fresno, several years ago, they had seen a rise in homelessness. They were experiencing a homelessness crisis, years before we were. And so observing that, it struck me that as Bakersfield continues to grow, that we too would observe a homelessness crisis, and sure enough we did. And so it was important for me that we really get ahead of it. And the thought at the time with the city was that the city doesn't provide social services, that it just is that's a county function, that the city really is focused on, roads, police, fire, code enforcement, basic city services, and that we ought not go into addressing homelessness. And my counter argument was, but we're already addressing homelessness in various different ways. Our police department, our fire department are responding to calls related to homelessness all the time. It is increasing our demand volume, calls for service. And so we have to be smarter at how we approach this crisis, and we have to participate not only at a local level, but at a regional and state level as well. That was just one issue. The other thing is, the reason I ran for city council was because I had such a huge heart for downtown and our urban core. And I saw so many missed opportunities for us to be very strategic at revitalizing our downtown and Old Town Kern and our various different neighborhoods that are historic in nature. I'm talking about Oleander Sunset, Alta Vista, East Bakersfield, Westchester, areas that are charming in nature in terms of architecture, but that have experienced a slow and steady decline in some blocks. And so it was important for me to really see the city be much more proactive at trying to address some of these issues, but also have a vision for revitalization throughout the urban core.
Well, I know, excuse me, to address these problems, the city made a decision in 2018 to put Measure N on the ballot, and you were the obviously the most vocal of the council members in support. Is this part of why you get your agenda done to address these issues?
Oh, absolutely. And citywide, we saw a demand for city services. I mean, just look at the city's growth alone. From 2000 to 2017, the city's population grew by 57%. The land area grew by 32%. The number of roads that we actually maintain grew by 82%. And we only continue to grow year after year. So the demands for services continue to increase, the costs continue to increase, and as well as any good business owner or nonprofit executive or city leader knows that even if you maintain the same level of services, costs continue to increase over time. Utilities, insurance premiums, right? List goes on, right? Maintenance costs. Those things continue to increase. So the city had a mantra for decades of doing more with less. And they prided itself. And sure, it's important to be nimble, but at some point you continue to cut and cut and cut, and you begin doing less with less. And that has a deleterious effect and impact on my constituents and every single resident in the city. When you take a look at BPD, for example, at that time, 2017, we had 407 authorized positions in our complement in the police department. The average number of officers in the top 20 cities, excluding LA and San Francisco, was 519. 100 officers, more than 100 officers fewer than what we had in our complement. And at the same time, we see vehicle thefts increase, auto thefts increase by something outrageous like 67%. Homicides increased by 75%. Burglaries increased by 32%. I mean, it goes on and on and on. So the demands for services, for public safety services and all other services really, filling potholes, code enforcement complaints, I can go on, continue to escalate, and yet our ability to actually meet those rising demands was stagnant and actually contracting. And so as a council member representing the urban core, became very frustrating because my phone rings off the hook every single day. I get emails 7 days a week. I get text messages late at night of concern after concern, and yet we did not have the capacity to really address them in a really meaningful way. And so that's why we had to push for the 1 cent sales tax. And we're not alone. 95% of all communities in the state actually did what we did far before we did, help themselves. say, we're not going to look towards anyone else but ourselves in order for us to meet the demands that we're experiencing.
Okay. Well, let's take a short break from Kern Tax, and we'll be back in a minute.
Hi, I'm Tim Rushing, and I've been affiliated with Kern Tax for over 25 years, currently serving as the board chair. Kern Tax is not an organization that will touch a warm spot in your heart. It is an organization that advocates for fiscal accountability and transparency while building relationships with the county, cities, special districts, and other government agencies. Since 2007, Kern Tax has been actively engaged in school districts concerning issuing school facility bonds. One would think Kern Tax would be an adversary, not a resource for school districts. On the contrary, local districts view Kern Tax as a resource. While our engagement has saved Kern County taxpayers nearly $1.5 billion in principal and interest, these savings did not come at the expense of the districts. The districts were actually able to get more usable funds for needed modernization and new construction by issuing well-structured bonds with shorter term maturities, saving taxpayers hundreds of millions in interest. Thank you.
Welcome back. Our guest today is Andrae Gonzales, Vice Mayor of the City of Bakersfield. We talked a little bit about the city's challenges. In over 4 years, the city's received $380 million, which is not a small amount of money. So what are the city's achievements, both visible to the public and what's going on behind the curtains that we really can't see, that are really helping making Bakersfield a better place?
Yeah, great question. One of my favorite achievements right away is I was walking through, I like to walk my ward. And so I was walking through Central Park one afternoon, and I saw 20 plus children playing in the playground at Central Park. Mike, I hadn't seen that in months, if not years. Okay, why? Why were they there? They felt safer, their families felt safer going back to the park because of our park ranger program, funded exclusively by PSVS. We have 20 officers who their primary responsibility is to maintain our parks. And when I hear from residents in Oleander, for example, they feel like they have taken back and reclaimed Beale Park. They feel like it's far safer. And we've done a significant number of investments in our parks. Everything from playground refurbishments to new restrooms to basketball court repavements, pickleball courts. The amenities that we're able to provide now as a result of PSVS has been significant. But when we talk about PSVS, the primary concern for all of us has been public safety. As a result of Measure N, not only have we been able to hire 20 park rangers, but we've been able to hire over 250 police officers since the beginning of Measure N through 2 police academies annually. We've been able to start up our own police academy training facility. Now, when I say 200 plus police officers, it's important for the viewers to know that we lose a lot of police officers because people move out of state, people get sick, people retire. But it's important for us to continue to host those academies, and the rate at which we actually run those academies is 2 times a year, and we're able to do that because of PSVS.
So you've had a net gain of about 60,
Net gain of around 65 police officers, with a new academy starting within the next couple of weeks, and we have 40 trainees coming into that academy.
So in your view, what are the challenges you haven't been able to address yet?
Well, there's still issues that we are facing today that we're trying to get at. Crime, burglaries, right? Property crime in the downtown area or Old Town Kern. Those are significant issues that we care deeply about. So we're trying to address those things and be very creative working with BPD. One of the other issues that I want to lift up is we were able to provide each police officer with a body-worn camera, which was funded as a result of PSVS, and that was something we were able to do right away. But it's going to take us time to get to that net gain of 100 police officers. It's taking far longer than I would have liked. We experienced a global pandemic, yes, and staff was quick to remind us that we went through that, and that slowed us down a bit. But even so, I think we must remain focused that this is our primary goal. The other thing is homelessness, right? We've been able to do a lot of great work at trying to combat homelessness in our community. As a result, we opened up and purchased a Calcott facility, opened up the Brundage Lane Navigation Center. Initially, we had 150 beds. People used to say, no one's going to go there. Homeless people, they'd rather sleep on the street. They don't want to go to the facility. Within the first month, we had all of those beds full, all of them. We just opened another 50 beds, all completely full. We will add ultimately in our second phase another 130 beds. And my expectation is that all of those beds are occupied, but they're occupied by different people, because not only are we just being able to shelter people in that shelter, but we're able to work with them to develop a housing plan. And we work with a nonprofit called Mercy House, and their main mantra is, what is your housing plan? And as a result of their case management work and connecting them with services, job training, even simple things like getting a driver's license, we were able to house over 250 people. Now think about that. Over 400 people, 450 individuals last night are now sheltered as a result of PSVS, who would have been on our streets. Now, it's kind of an awkward thing to say what could have been, but that's the reality. The challenge, though, is at the same time we still see an influx of new individuals falling into homelessness. Mm-hmm. And so the impact for those who are driving around on our streets is that homelessness is not getting any better. That in fact, the problem may even look worse on some blocks, in some areas of town. And that is a challenge that we have to combat, meaning we have to be far more proactive. We have great teams in place. Code enforcement has a rapid response team that goes out and sites encampments and making sure that they don't continue to grow. I want to expand that 7 days a week into the evenings, not just 9 to 5. We have flood ministries and other agencies that are working on case management, trying to bring in people into the shelter. There again, I want it 7 days a week, late into the evening, so that we can do that work, because the issue of homelessness doesn't stop at 5 o'clock. We have to make sure that we're responding, and we have a response team throughout the nights and weekends. So we still have a lot of work to do, but I will give the city credit, and city team and the city manager and a lot of folks credit for at least establishing the framework, setting the table, so now that we can take it to the next level, and these future iterations become so much easier because the right framework has been established.
I think it's very safe to say there's only one major city in America that's been able to control their homeless, and that's San Antonio, Texas. They, 20 years ago, built a massive complex and providing all of these services, more services than that we have. I think they have 20 or 30 different providers, and you don't hear about them because they don't claim to have a problem. I mean, so and I think, but they're the only one with that recipe for that. So we'll have to look and see how they continue to do, and how much we can plagiarize.
Well, I think you're right. It is an interesting point. San Antonio, Texas, right? We're in California. Different laws in California, as you know. And one of the things that we as a city are advocating right now is a reform of LPS, the Lanterman Patriot Short Act. What this means is we're trying to change the definition of what is gravely disabled, because right now it is so hard to conserve individuals, to get individuals who are experiencing mental health issues on our streets, who are a threat to themselves and to others, get them into the care that they need, to compel them into treatment. There are steps that Sacramento has taken through care courts, but there's far more that we need to do. And I'm a big proponent of this step, because right now what we see in downtown and other parts of the city is we see people who are exhibiting irrational behavior, running around the street half naked, sometimes fully naked, defecating on our sidewalks, randomly throwing bricks in windows of buildings. The list goes on. But exhibiting irrational behaviors, we are expecting them to make a rational decision about their own care. It's not going to happen. It just isn't. if we really care about these individuals and their well-being, we must compel them into treatment. And so I'm really rooting on Senator Eggman, who's really championing this and hoping that the state can really fix this, because you know that statewide we're experiencing a homelessness crisis, and we have to address this at the state level.
City government is a service provider. That's its job.
Yeah.
It's public safety, it's water, it's sewer, it's parks, it's a number of things. But one thing in the public's mind stands out that you do really, really well, and that's your graffiti abatement. Why, when you call graffiti abatements there within a day, 2 at the most, and they get it done, they match the paint. I saw it down this on 19th Street, no graffiti one day, graffiti put on, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, by then it was 7 o'clock when I got there, the graffiti guy was already spray washing it off and painting it. So how can you take that model and apply it to all public service and being that responsive and being able to get things done in such a timely manner?
It's a great question. The way I would answer it is that we need to lean into our mobile app, right? We have this wonderful mobile app that the city has established that has a number of services that can be provided by simply a click of a button on your smartphone. Graffiti removal is the primary function now, but there's a number of things: potholes, code enforcement issues. It goes on and on. And so it's important for us to look at metrics as a result of those mobile app requests, service requests. And in fact, as one council member, I request all of the different reports as it relates to the data of what's happening in Ward 2 month after month. And also looking at how long does it actually take for us to respond, right? What is that response time? Because that's critical. We have to be more responsive. I'm with you. And it all starts with data, making sure that we have good numbers and we're able to benchmark it and track it over time.
That's important, having benchmarks and being able to track over time. Let's take another short break to hear a message from Kern Tax. I'm Michael Turnipseed. For the past 18 years, the Executive Director of the Kern County Taxpayers Association. Local government agencies must be substantially transformed over the next generation to address the stiff headwinds of changing demographics, regulatory mandates, and structural economic inequalities on many levels. This transformation will require meaningful improvements in public sector productivity, integration of governmental functions, and innovations that produce performance advances that can only come through creative public-private partnerships. Aggressive advocacy from civic organizations like the Kern County Taxpayers Association will be essential for public officials to get and stay focused on these challenges. If you're interested in participating in this transformation of our governmental systems, send me an email at kerntax@kerntaxpayers.org. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching our commercial. We're back with Andrae Gonzales, Vice Mayor of the City of Bakersfield. We have a few more questions to talk about. The BPD has its 60 additional officers. Response times, though, are continuing to rush at all levels of response, even non-essential responses. Yet in our current makeup, police is all we have to respond. It could be to animal issues, it could be to damaged property. There's a myriad of responses that have to. So they brag about homicides down, but homicides are down nationwide because of COVID. We get that. So what can we do to restructure the resources at the police department to address the lower level crimes and get them with the same kind of responses that high level crime have?
I think the strategy is we need to differentiate our responses to various different calls, That's really what the heart of it is. And we're doing some of that. I mean, we have now a mental health clinician in our BPD call center, so that when someone has a mental health crisis, they are directed to that clinician and they can determine whether or not a police response is warranted or not. A lot of times, in 2/3 of the time, it's not, and they're able to resolve the issue right away without a police officer. And in similar ways, there are many calls for service that don't require an armed police officer to respond. And so something like community service officers, something that I know you've been advocating for, might be more appropriate. And we have police service technicians, for example. We can deploy them to various different calls for service, to take police reports, or to do things that, again, don't require an armed police officer. So we're really trying to differentiate the response. That's something that I, as one council member, would like us to move toward. But it all starts with really analyzing response times citywide, but also by zone, and making sure that we understand why there are disparities in our response times as it relates to, the Hill Zone or Central Zone or the West Side zones. Why are those disparities, and how do we make sure that we're reducing response times in all 4 corners of the city?
That's what it's about, being there in a short period of time.
Yep.
Even if you've had a non-injury car wreck, it doesn't take 3 policemen to respond, and they're there for 10 or 15 minutes when they could be doing something else. Economic development is a hot buzzword in Kern County these days, and how we're going to transform our economy. The city has set up its own economic development department. I know they participated in the B3K process. So what is the city, and they're using Measure N funds for this, what are they doing on the economic development forefront?
Oh, they're doing a number of things. And so one primary focus is how do we create the conditions to bring new industries, new companies into this region, into Bakersfield. And they've developed an economic and community development strategic plan that they're now employing. But like everything is, we spend a lot of time planning. We need to spend more time actually doing, and that's something that I'd like us to pursue. But for me, and you were at a meeting recently, we have now budget, finance, and economic development meetings. Used to be just budget and finance. For me, it really is about 2 things. One is about meaningful jobs, jobs that actually pay livable wages. How are we creating new jobs in this community, either attracting businesses, but more interesting and something that excites me is how do we work with existing businesses, existing companies in our city, and grow them and expand them so they can become tradable industries, tradable businesses where they're actually exporting their services and their goods to other regions, which means we're bringing new dollars into our community. That's what we want to see. I know lots of folks ask about, bringing in a new restaurant or a new movie theater. That's all great. That's great community development. But when we talk about economic development, really what we want to do is bring new dollars into our region. And so that's been the real impetus and real focus. We have some opportunity. We've identified certain corridors like Brundage Lane, which is surrounded by a number of historically disadvantaged neighborhoods, where we can create a really compelling industry sector, with various different plants and large-scale production facilities that will bring about those meaningful jobs for the residents in those surrounding neighborhoods. And so that's something that we continue to talk about, continue to try to leverage partnerships with Bakersfield College, CSU Bakersfield, in order for us to make that happen.
Don't forget the Kern High School District,
Kern High
with
School
the
District
Rock
as well.
And CTEC.
Absolutely.
They have 38 different majors, 2,400 students, and the biggest thing that they're doing, the high school district, not somewhere between 900 and 1,000 students get internships, and they're seniors in high school.
Yeah.
They get to go out, get work, and that's the big thing, developing opportunities, and those internships open those doors. They're part of that opportunity.
I agree.
And so everybody talks about BC and Cal State, but the foundation is happening right here at the Kern High School District, where we're filming this today.
And wonderful students I've gotten to meet today, and I agree with you. Thank you.
You know, budget season is here, and we always look at the city budget presentations and stuff, and it seems our system is always based on goals or the principles of measure in, and never about an outcome. We never set a defined goal line for us. We want to do this in 5 years or 3 years. When can we see some, goal set budget with, with matrix and goals and that can be measured?
Great question. And we are pushing, the city council is really pushing City Hall to move in this direction. So you're correct. We have established city council goals that are broad based, can include lots and lots of different things. But I am less interested in city staff doing lots and lots of things as much as I'm more interested in having them really focus in on what's going to move the needle, what's actually going to have a transformative impact in our community over time. And that's really what we're trying to move towards. And so in hopefully this year, the community will see those metrics. We'll see concrete objectives that we can measure our success against as a city. We have to do that. We have to focus on outcomes. We're not just trying to do stuff just to do it. We want to see these outcomes, and we have to, unless we measure ourselves in terms of outcomes, right? Not outputs, not how much we're doing. I'm talking about outcomes. What happens as a result of the work that we're doing? If we don't do that, then we will never make any improvement. What doesn't get measured oftentimes doesn't get done.
It's the fact that you have with Measure In, a $700 million, $800 million budget, and you have lots of outflow, but what are the results that everybody can see?
Right.
Well, I want to thank you for today.
You're welcome.
We want to thank Andrae Gonzales, Vice Mayor City of Bakersfield, for being with us today on Conversations That Matter. We also want to thank the video production class at CTEC, the Kern High School District, for filming and providing this film. And especially Lisa Kurtz, the instructor, and the 8 or 10 students that are working on making this happen. Also importantly, we want to thank the viewers. We wouldn't be doing this without viewers watching and sending in emails and comments. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email us at kerntax@kerntaxpayers.org or visit our website at www.kerntaxpayers.org. Thank you again for watching Conversations That Matter.